So today is May 30th, and my topic, the topic that I have chosen for today is called Scissor Work and More. So we discuss Scissor Work and more. Um, So why it is so is that uh, Scissor Work is a kind of the almost the end product of a good fire motor, and the product of a fire motor. Maybe the final fruit of a good fine motor activity is scissor work. It's very complicated procedure of performances that end to a good control of scissor at one hand and good control of the paper or cardboard or some other stuff on the other hand, and having a good posture. So it's a kind of, let's say, it's one of the highest and most advanced level of fine motor which is needed. I mean, if a person is able to do the appropriate work with the scissor, that person won't come to you for writing or handwriting or for buttoning or for tying the shoelace, because as if many of the other fine motor tasks are in a less advanced state. So what I need you to know is that I have chosen scissor work as one of the most advanced fine motor, as the final step of maturity of manual dexterity. And whenever we talk about fine motor, we might forget the importance and necessity of good eye visual integrity, visual acuity, visual perception, but fine motors in general are related to the tiny muscles in the fingers and the eyes. So any any of our tiny muscles in the eye that are responsible for controlling the movement of the eye so that it helps two eyes move together to give a good picture to our brain, to give a clear picture, to be able to zoom in, to understand the depth perception visually, having a good visual spatial perception. All of them are being uh, done by tiny muscles of the eyes, and it is still in the scope of fine motor. But most of the time, when when children are referred to us, when the family are saying, my child is weak at fine motor, and please work on that, they do believe that fine motor is tracing or handwriting. But yeah, even for tracing, the person who is very weak at visual acuity, visual depth perception, or visual eye-hand coordination will not be able to perform it correctly. On the other hand, motor task and on the advanced section, scissor work are the manifest of the child's independence in activities of daily living. The majority of the things that a child can do are with hand. So if you have a good hand, you can have a more advanced level of play. You can have a more advanced use of material or equipment. You will be more independent in operating your daily life task in a more proficient way. And so it will give you higher self-confidence or higher feeling of control over the environment and occupational task. Yeah. And also having a good fiber tool maybe helping you that indirectly can activate other parts of the brain which are responsible in charge of communication or talking or verbalization. So in overall, and since one of the most emphasize domain of concern amongst the families who come and bring their kids to us is biomotor skills. I needed to utilize that topic of scissor work and more to run a kind of, let's say, a real workshop with you all, and utilize this approach to work on this. So first of all, we need to know a little about two main approaches that occupational therapists utilize when working with children. For some part, just forget the topic of Scissor work or fine motor, just focus on the approaches. One approach is called bottom-up, which is process-oriented, and the other approach is top-down, which is task-oriented. First, we need to know them. For bottom-up approach, we occupational therapists face with some complaints when we hear that, oh, my child is not good at tracing. We analyze the sub-skills, the fundamental skills, to check what abilities are missing so that that person is not able to do a proper tracing, a proper scissor work, a proper soccer play. So just imagine that if a child comes to us with a complaint about not being good at sport, look at the higher level of the pyramid is sport, with a complaint of not good at sport. But when we analyze the activity, we see that that child is very weak at dynamic balance. Or we can realize that, oh, this child is very weak at reflex maturity, or it has had many issues in kind of superficial tactile input, and then that person is very sensitive when even it holding a basketball in hand, he feels bad or he feels pain. So when we analyze that child's performance, we see that not only that child is suffering from lack of adequate skills in sport, but also does have problem in lower levels of function, including body function, postural stability, motor planning, sensory system, sub-skills like standing on one foot or jumping or no. So many of them are contributing to each other so that the person become able to perform a sport as a teammate, as a team member of a sport game. Of course, we need to know that sport is a kind of cognitively intrigued activity that the person should have enough adequate linguistic skills, cognition, parallel level of functions that are gathering together so that the child becomes able to perform it in a competitive way, understanding the direction of the goal, the teammate, the counterpart, the rules of the game. Many complexities exist that people or occupational therapists who are going to utilize bottom-up approach do not start with the sport when the complaint is about the sport. They do not start with scissor work when the complaint is about scissor work. They start with the fundamental skills that contribute to a proper scissor work and fix them first, then go up. That's called bottom up. So on the other hand, in top-down approach, we take a totally different way of working with children. In top-down approach, we say, oh, the child is weak at sport, so maybe let's take soccer. the child is weak at soccer. So if the child doesn't understand the concept of teammate and team members, why not running that sport in a non-competitive game, just as a kind of sport activity, as an exercise of passing the ball to each other and scoring a goal? Okay, it's more modification on the occupation to simplifying the occupation, but still we start with the soccer. When the complaint is soccer, we start with the activity that look like soccer, but it's not a full soccer. It's just resembling soccer, very simplified version of soccer. Like for example, if a child is not good at visual motor integrity, the person who is coming to us, maybe we can recommend that person to use kind of bigger ball or lighter ball, or playing with younger counterpart, or having a one-to-one shadow, or playing in a smaller field, or a bigger field, or fenced area, or deflated ball, so that the control of that ball become easier for that child with limited reaction time or response time. Yeah. So many of these things exist, and we modify the task, but we don't quit the task. We keep sticking to that task, which is a matter of concern in top down, but we modify the task so that the child will start doing that. And as the child grows up in the skills and feels more mastery in the task, we gradually make that soccer activity as close as possible to a real soccer. We gradually remove those modifications and simplification, gradually make it more resembling to a real soccer in real nature, such natural setting. So two systems are bottom up and top down. So now, just imagine that if you want to talk about scissor work. First of all, I should mention that scissor work per se is not a kind of occupation. It's not a meaningful occupation, scissor work. What should we do with scissor? Why do we have to cut it? So if there's no meaning in working with scissor per se, so at the level of participation, I can put engagement in an art craft activity. So if a person, if the goal is the engagement in an art craft activity, and for that art craft activity, the child needs to have a skilled use of scissors in cutting and lines, curve lines, shapes, and for those skills, the child is in need of learning how to sit properly, how to be able to control the scissor in one hand and holding the paper in another hand, and learning how to open and close the scissor to cut the traces. Okay. In fact, those fundamental skills in the lower level of the pyramid will contribute to the mid-level of activity, so that the child becomes able to control the scissor with one hand and have a good control on the shape, and then at the end of the day, doing some meaningful occupation like engagement in an art activity. So all in all, what we are going to do is that we are going to move forward with something. What happened to this slide? How come? So that slide is designed so because we are trying to mostly work on top-down approach now. For top-down approach, first we should let the child feel that he or she can do it. So the majority of performance or our focus of intervention is to reflecting this belief that yes, You see, you were hating doing art and craft because you weren't able to use the scissor. Doesn't matter at all. Now you can do the craft. Now you can do it. Who said you can't do it? You can do it because we can modify the equipment. We can give you kind of self-opener scissor. We can help you in a hand-over-hand task. We can give you a cardboard instead of paper. We can help you hold a better position or posture at the table upon sitting. We can help you do, can even you don't need to use the scissor all the time. You can use your fingers to tear the paper because the main focus on this level is on performing the art and craft activity so that the child feels he is fully engaged and participating in the activity. Okay? And with occasional use of scissors, he or she feels that, yes, I could do it. And it has values to me. And with minimum effort of using the regular scissor, I can get the maximum outcome in case of beauty of the artwork. Yeah, it is meaningful to me to do so. So we first start with this, and then we move forward to simplifying the activities by use of cardboard, use of traces or ribbon, self-opening scissor, single-handed control, like as if we give it, we hold the trace in our hand and just ask the child to just use one hand to cut. Repetition of the activities and using the shapes or lines from simple to difficult. For example, cutting this very narrowed ribbon is much easier to cutting a long line because the child for cutting long line, uh, the child should keep opening and closing the scissor and moving the scissor forward. So it is a little harder than single use of opening closing procedure. Or for example, straight line is easier than curved line. Or let's say rectangle is easier than triangle, and both of them are easier than circles, for example. Yeah. Or the other things like that. Okay. Even the hardest one is stone or heart that are very hard cut and control both hands and knees. And lastly, eventually, use of regular scissors, bilateral use of hand, sitting at the table, doing the shaped and curved line, you see? So in top-down approach, we first start with the task and gradually narrow down our focus on the repetition and making it into the kind of boring task of use of scissors during the activity. However, when it comes to bottom up, it's so. First of all, for bottom up, we should check and improve postural stability. Oh, but I told you my child is here to work on scissor work. Okay, why are you working on posture? I have brought my child and spending money over your sessions to so that my child learns to control the scissor in hand and cut, cut, cut. I say, okay, I know that, I know that. Give me time. I need a couple of months for firstly to work on postural stability so that your child learns to sit at the table properly, have enough working tolerance, being able to control his core muscles and trunk muscles to stay still on the chair. You know why? Because if your child fidget or lay down or can't control his body over the over at the table, how that child can hold the scissor in hand at the time. So just imagine a child is holding this scissor in hand and holding it paper here, but the posture is so bad that he's holding. So how it can work on scissor work? So it's almost impossible. So postural stability is the key for any fine motor task, including scissor work. So in fact, in bottom up, we not only work on scissor work, not only work on fine motor, but also we work on postural stability because its impact will radiate to different aspects of the life of the child. But it seems irrelevant to the requirement or complaints of the family. So the family comes with a shift complaint or simple inquiry of working of fine motor, but once we assess, we feel that the child is lacking shoulder, elbow, wrist stability. So if a child is weak at shoulder, the proximal joint of shoulder should stabilize elbow. Elbow should stabilize wrist. Wrist should stabilize fingers, and fingers can mobilize correctly with good control. But if we are going to ask our fingers to move open and close the scissor, but our wrist is not stable, as if we are cutting and our wrist is moving, or we can't have enough control over the upper proximal joint, we cannot perform a good scissor work. Is it clear why it is important to start first with this from bottom-up approach? Also, bilateral integrity and hand dominance is another aspect. Yeah, so scissor work or many of the fine motor are the tasks that you need two hands to operate different tasks. One hand is going to hold an item, the other hand is supposed to open and close the scissor. Sometimes for cutting the curved line or shapes, both hands should do two different things. One hand should change the direction of the paper in hand, and the other one should keep opening and closing. And both hands need good shoulder, elbow, wrist stability. And when you are performing them, you need good postural stability. So all together, they should improve together, yeah? And if the child is not, no, he is not, no, the hand dominance of the child is not well recognized, so that child is well kind of switching the scissor from one hand to the other. There are other issues that needed to be fixed. Crossing a midline of body, that many of the activities that are going to be done by both hands need that require this skill that the child become able to use the item in front of his body, in front of his nose and body nose line, sagittal line, like that, and then holding it, and then if in the curved line, when I'm cutting with the scissor, I have to use in a kind of oblique line from right to left or diagonal. Okay, if I'm going to move the scissor with my right hand toward my left side of my body, the control of my body, the control of the scissor in my hand should not be impacted negatively. So once we are going to tie our shoelace, once we are going to fasten the button, when we are going to unzip or zip, zipping up, unzipping, many of them lead crossing the midline of body. And if a child is not good at that, that person cannot perform a good control on the scissor. Yeah. So it's somehow related to immaturity in reflex development in earlier years of life, but it needs to be checked. The other thing is about working tolerance, that if a child learns to sit for a more prolonged number of minutes at a table to do the task, that might seem not completely meaningful to and need more patience or tolerance to sit to finish it. And then maybe sometimes that working tolerance needs kind of compliance or following instruction or accepting the authority of other person as an instructor or not being behavioral. All of them might be falling in this scope. The other thing is oculomotor control. Ocular means the Latin word of eye. So the motor control of the eyes, that if my two eyes are looking at the same subject and giving one picture at a time, which is called convergency, divergency, and also adjustment, that I can see one picture with two eyes. When it gets far or it gets close, still that picture is clear in my brain, and I can control my eyes that if I'm working on a scissor work or any fine motor, there is no tear on my happening. So sometimes in my eyes get tired very easily because my tiny muscles of the eye get tired very fast. Yeah. Surprisingly, getting tired, now that my tiny muscles of the eye get tired so fast, are somehow related to lack of postural stability and lack of isometric um, contraction in the bigger muscles of my body. So once I work on postural stability, indirectly I'm working oculomotor control as well. They are somehow related to each other at the lower levels of the brain function. Eye-hand coordination, that many of the families are coming with this term. The correct term is visual motor integrity, but eye-hand coordination is another term, that how I can look at what I do with my hand. And when I'm looking at a thing, I'm operating with the same thing that I'm looking at. It seems very easy, but most of the time, the child who is in lack of eye-hand coordination, when he's focusing to do the thing, it's a kind of wobbly, lots of vibration, lots of fluctuation in the handwriting, and not fully confident of controlling the writing or scissor writing equipment or material or scissor work in the hand in the proper way. So they are all related to eye-hand coordination. Manual dexterity and in-hand manipulation. Just imagine that if I have something in my hand like this, that I can use it in my hand on my palm. And then if I can easily take it to my two fingers like that. Again, I can put it in my palm. I can turn its direction to different way. I can open it. Yeah. I can close it. Yeah. I can transfer it to my other hand. I can hold it with 3 fingers or 2 fingers. Key pinch or 2-pad pinch or 3-pad pinch. There are different methods of tensor and control of some item in hand. So why I can do this? Because there is a very well synced level of mobilization and stabilization in my joint of hand and muscles of my tiny muscles of the finger. I have a good wrist stability that is not moving, so I can have a good control of that. So my wrist gets fixated because my elbow is having good stability, my posture is good. So now my fingers are mobilizing so, but in the meantime that I'm mobilizing it, if I don't have enough strength in my hand, okay, my finger might drop it because the mobility is more than the strength of the hand. Vice versa, if the strength of my fingers, tiny muscles of my finger, is more, it gives added stability, but less mobility to the item in my hand. I cannot easily move it in my hand. It gets stuck in my hand and I can't move it in my hand. Yeah. So it's a very well fair balance between mobilization and stabilization of item. And look how miraculous that human development that all of them are, no, all of them seem taken for granted. But yeah, writing, tracing, play work, Play-Doh, but they are really no many factors are contributing together so that we can have such normal things. Also, visual depth perception and acuity that uh, not just imagine when you're opening the scissor, when the child is supposed to put the paper between two blades of the scissor, how the child detects that if it is inside, within the two blades, between the two blades, or under the blade, or border the blade, it's all about visual depth perception. Many of children who cannot adjust it well are having a problem, or the people who cannot cut on the line. They need a much thicker line so that they can align the scissor on a line, are the ones who have less visual acuity. And even psychological aspects like fear of failure. Sometimes people say that, okay, just do it. That's okay. Maybe you make mistake, but keep doing that. Repetition is needed so that you can master. But the child feels stuck because he just need to cut on the line, or if sometimes he can't cut exactly on the line, he throws tantrum. So, oh, I made a mess, oh, it's bad, and then refuse to continue that. So that fear of failure, obsession, perfectionism, or other psychological aspects, even failure from the past experience might be less successful, so the child withdraws the activity. And once the child gets mastered on all of them, once we check and improve all of them, having it in mind, not only is going to positively impact scissor work, but also they will impact other areas of life as well simultaneously. Yeah. But once we work on them, once we check and improve them, if the client's family haven't been disappointed of the service routine, and if they haven't canceled it before that, then we will reach to the next level, that use of regular scissor when working in a conventional way, doing that bottom-up approach, this kind of art and craft with scissors. Yeah. So it's bottom, then up. Keep it in mind that for the whole process of bottom-up, when we say first, this, maybe the therapist decide to use uh, biking, to pushing the pedals intermittently, activate the hand dominance and laterality, and bilateral integrity, and crossing the midline of body, and good postural stability. But the family have asked us to work on scissor work, and we are asking the child to sit on a bike and then push the pedals. How come they don't seem related to each other? But from bottom-up approach, it does relate. Yeah? It's very important that you can break down the activities into pieces, to fundamental skill, and then so scissor work can more mean so. Then how to improve ideas and activity is the part in which I'm going to ask you to get divided into two groups. I think that we are one, two, including if I don't want to involve in any of the activities in the group. So Tulsi, Letitia, Puria, Mary, Lenia, Rosa. I'm back. Okay, I'm back. So I wanna ask Tulsi, without terminating the session to make the breakout room for two. Remember that in this PRP model, we have talked about occupation. Yeah. My question before breakout room, I have emphasized about the occupation of scissor work. Okay, and two different approach of bottom up, top down. So the occupation was analyzable. We could analyze occupation. We know what scissor work means. We can break it down into pieces and the fundamental skill needed. But I didn't emphasize or point to any specific person. I didn't say scissor work for V, or scissor work for D, or scissor work with this child. How could you analyze the task then? You couldn't analyze the task because the person whom you were about to apply your treatment activities for was unknown. Does it make sense to you? It's a pitfall. So the point is that the reason I kept switching in between two breakout rooms to see if there is a kind of confusion about treatment plan or activity ideas. If I say just imagine that you are planning a treatment plan for scissor work for V, you know V, who is V, okay? We cannot sit still at the table. So we should work on working tolerance. Okay. Then for breakout, for bottom-up approach, we should double emphasize on working tolerance. No matter if it is scissor work or Play-Doh or doll work, we should work on working tolerance for that person. Yes, but for other person like D, that might be good at tolerance at the table, but that D that has is not coming nowadays. Okay, that D. For that person, maybe the working tolerance was good, but his manual dexterity was not good. So we should have another treatment plan for that person. Yes? So also, I didn't say where, at home, at school, in clinic, in one-to-one setting, in group program. So the environment was not well described. So once I could describe or explain in what environment with what kid you are going to expect what occupation, then you could make sure about the performance, expected performance, and then you could analyze it. Then you could synthesize some activities based on your analysis. Yeah? Does it make sense? So when it comes to applicable, feasible activities and ideas, we should make sure about that person who is going to take that service. That's the big difference between ChatGPT or AI or Google search. There are plenty of ebooks about fine motor skill ideas. Okay, which one applies to what kid? That's the point. Yeah? So you have spent 10 or 15 minutes on that task, presenting it and also brainstorming about your idea. But I'm asking you from now till let's say Tuesday, there is a kind of assignment for this participant to work on the tracing skill, tracing alphabet skills for two of the preferred children in the day program, no matter who. They bring it to me as the supervisor, clinical supervisor, and I will check it. I'm asking both of the groups to work and give treatment plan for both approaches. for cookies. Then it's a good exercise to think, okay, you choose D and V, yeah, you choose N and V, and then bottom up and top down are tracing alphabet task. Let's move forward to see how it moves, how it goes. Okay. Last slide before we terminate today's workshop is that when we choose which one. So at the end of the day, if bottom-up is a correct approach or top-down is a good approach, it's a very common question among the students that they are in a dilemma of what approach to use for who and which one is correct. No, it's a kind of term that we're using for losing. No, just search in search of correcting is a waste of time. Both approaches are working and feasible. But in general, for bottom-up approach, it's mostly useful for children in developmental years. Let's say younger than 7 years of life. Mostly is better approach for global developmental and sensory issues. So if there is a global developmental delay, global sensory issues, many issues or problems exist together that are working like obstacles in performing some expected activity. If the use of top-down approach from other clinical practitioners have been unsuccessful and wasn't working for that child, if there is a higher need of intensive practice and repetition, and finally, if there is a higher need of discipline and behavioral management in a child, most of the time, bottom-up approach is the preferred one. For top-down approach, however, if the child is in older age, like kind of 6.5 and above, or if the child has lack of motivation and repetition, just imagine that the child feels it's nonsense and meaningless to do some task for several times when it doesn't have any meaning. Why am I cutting it? Are they going to become the leaves of a tree? So, okay, I will do it. But if they are just cutting the paper, why should I do that? If the activities are going to be asked in a group-based setting, if there is a need of adding cognitive, linguistic, or psychological aspect to the occupation, if the activity is going to help the child to improve his imagination or use of language or a kind of cooperative work in the teamwork, or that person is very high functioning, finding meaning metaphorically in every activity that he does or she does. And if there is a need of autonomy in the child, that the child feels, I want to do it because I enjoy doing that, and I won't do the thing that I don't enjoy, and I want to be the boss of myself. I don't want your supervision to do my own work. Top-down approach is more rewarding and more purposeful and more working for that child. Yeah. So once we say, for example, once we decide a specific child, like let's say who M. Some of you know, some of you don't know. M is a 9-year-old girl with lots of frustration in academic aspects. If we just ask her to keep cutting the ribbon to make the traces, maybe she dislikes it. So bottom-up approach won't work for that person. Still, in order to exercise your mind, I encourage you to think of every client, no matter of the age or other limitations, in case of both approach in a way that that approach could work somehow successfully for that person. It's a good exercise for your mind, for your analytical mind, how to analyze the stuff. Okay, so Q&A, or if you have any question, I'm here now.
Hi. Just wanted to